All right. Welcome, folks. You are at CR Club Pennsylvania's briefing, our series of live legislative updates. My name is Melissa, she, her pronouns. I'm the senior distributed organizer for the Pennsylvania chapter. You're going to hear mostly tonight from Jen Quinn, our legislative and political director, and also joining us is Nate Regal, the Clean Energy Program advocate. We are asking that you stay on Zoom until we get to the end of Jen's slide deck, and then there will be time for questions. If you have questions, you can start putting them into the chat, and we will review them as we go through. We are recording tonight, so be aware of that if you do have your camera turned on, you may end up on the YouTube recording. When we refer to the briefing digest, the briefing notes, or just the notes, that is this link here. I am dropping that into the chat. You're welcome to jump into it. If I can get that to copyright. You're welcome to jump into it as we go along or wait until after. Um, and the recording of this session will be released in the next few days, as well as all the resources. So you will have access to these in the future. I think with that, I can go ahead and turn it over to Jen. Take it away, Jen.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. It's a little cold out today, so I think it's a little easier maybe today than some of the really nice days we were experiencing. But I am hopefully sharing this and hopefully folks can see this. All right, I'm getting a thumbs up. Thank you very much. So again, welcome to the briefing. We're gonna let you know what's been happening in Harrisburg and what we're expecting to happen in Harrisburg. So with very little fanfare, the House did pass the state budget on the 14th of April. Now, this is an identical or nearly identical version to the governor's budget, which he proposed in February. But again, keep in mind, this is a consequential step, but it will go to the Senate now, and it may sit there for weeks or months before they decide to do anything with it. And I'm sure that whatever version we get from the Senate will not resemble what the House sent over there. But just wanted to put this on everyone's radar. This did happen. This is a consequential step, and we're hoping that the Senate moves on the budget sooner rather than later. Now, getting into data centers, something that is top of mind for everyone, including us. House Bill 1834, we've talked about this bill previously on this call, but it was amended heavily before it passed on March 24th. This bill, keep in mind, is not really an environmental bill. It's more of a consumer protection bill and details or sets a regulatory framework for how data centers can connect to the grid. So in this bill, commercial data centers are defined as those that have a peak demand of greater than 25 megawatts. It prohibits utilities from shifting data center related costs onto other customers. It requires cost allocation or direct assignment to large load users. So in plain terms, that means they're paying for the upgrades that they need when it comes to the grid and extra power. It also creates a data center LIHEAP enhancement fund. Folks may be familiar with LIHEAP. It's the Low Income Heating Assistance Program. Data centers based on power usage have to contribute to that fund. And it also creates a Pennsylvania Energy Independence Fund for new clean, firm energy systems, energy efficiency projects, and community energy facilities like community solar. So again, based on the energy that they use, they have to contribute to these funds. Both are good things, a little bit for the environment there. And then this is House Bill 1834 continued. It does have a requirement that data centers procure in-state clean, firm energy. By clean, firm energy, I mean nuclear, hydrothermal, geothermal, and then wind plus batteries, solar plus batteries. So things that are dispatchable. So 10% in 2027, rising to 32% by 2035. It also has a requirement for backup generators, limiting their use to emergencies and testing only, and also tier 4 generators, which are the cleanest diesel generators. So again, a little something for the environment, but again, this is largely a consumer protection bill. And then some more data center bills that passed on the 13th. This is House Bill 2150. It simply requires data centers must report energy and water usage yearly, and that be made public via DEP. And then House Bill 2151, the local government commission would develop a draft model ordinance for municipalities to use. That is, again, optional. Both bills did pass with a lot of bipartisan support. I think there were maybe 66 no votes for one and 77 for another. So you're getting, well over half of the chamber, the 203 members of the House supporting both of these bills. And then we're expecting House Bill 2246 to probably get a vote sometime within the next few weeks. This is an additional water usage reporting bill. It's a little more thorough than 2150. It has a monitoring requirement. It establishes additional permit considerations, and it helps to guide water withdrawals that are happening outside of the Delaware River Basin Commission and the Susquehanna River Basin Commission, so Western Pennsylvania. And something else I want to flag with data centers before we move on, I know this is a really controversial topic. When Sierra Club is talking about these bills and supporting these bills, we're supporting the regulation of these bills. That's separate from supporting data centers in generally, right? We're not supporting the expansion of data centers, but we are supporting the regulation of data centers should they be built. And those two things are getting conflated and misconstrued. So just to be clear, we do want regulations for data centers if they are built, but we are not supporting the development of data centers. The bills I mentioned, they are sitting in the Senate. The Briefing Digest has an advocacy toolkit for all of those bills. If folks are interested in taking action, things like action alerts, letters to the editor, a call-in script, so you can call the Senate, as well as a brief email. You can send a quick email, depending on your level of comfort and what you're interested in. But we do encourage folks to take action because, again, we think there should be additional rules on the books for data centers if they're coming to Pennsylvania. And a few other bills that I'll highlight that we're pretty excited about. One is what we're calling the ATT bill, Advanced Transmission Technologies, or Grid Enhancing Technologies. We call them GETs. This is simply upgrading the technologies that we have when it comes to transmission to get more capacity out of them before building multi-billion-dollar new transmission lines. So under this bill, utilities would have to consider these modern grid technologies, and the PUC would have the power to deny proposed projects. And so when I'm talking about these, I mean things like dynamic line ratings, which can tell us how much capacity is in a transmission line in real time. And so we know there's maybe 20 or 30% more capacity on there. We can put more power on there rather than building a new line. And then also high performance conductors, which is a fancy word for new wires. We've all seen power lines sagging in the heat. New technologies, carbon fiber, they don't sag in the heat. When a power line is sagging in the heat, it's losing capacity. So if we put something as simple as just new wires, we could increase transmission capacity by maybe 15 or 20% and avoid building a new transmission line. So this came out of the House Energy Committee. We're hoping that it can get some bipartisan support because it seems like a really common sense bill that should have bipartisan support. And then I'll also flag House Bill 2076. This is establishing a regulatory framework for enhanced geothermal systems. These are very deep wells, greater than 5,000 feet. These are not the geothermal you're going to get at your house. This is something that could possibly heat or provide electricity for a campus, a city block. If we can find the right sort of underground strata, could even produce electricity if it's hot enough. And so this would, again, establish a regulatory framework for these very deep wells that could possibly produce electricity. It does default to existing oil and gas permitting, which is slightly troubling until the Environmental Quality Board develops their own regulations. And then in this case, the geothermal rights are owned by the surface property interest owner, not the mineral owner, the subsurface owner. There's a lot to that bill. These are only two very short bullets. If folks want to do a deeper dive on that at some other point, we can. But this also was voted out of committee. It could get a floor vote, hopefully within the next few weeks. And again, it's about getting cleaner sources of energy and electricity onto the grid as soon as possible. Another bill I will flag, I think we've talked about this previously, but not for a long time. Senate Bill 980 and House Bill 1261, they're identical bills. House Bill 1261 passed the House unanimously last July. That's so rare. It never really happens. What it would do is ban firefighting foam that contains PFAS. We've all heard of PFAS and how terrible it is. These forever chemicals end up in our water and in our bodies. And so this would ban the use of that product. It would also require labeling in the gear that firefighters wear if it contains PFAS. It supports transitions to safer alternatives, and it also creates enforcement and penalties. So this has been stuck in the Senate since last July, but we are hearing some rumors that there may be a committee vote tomorrow. It will be great if it comes out of committee and can get a floor vote, because again, this bill is a no-brainer at this point. I don't think anyone opposes it, not even the chemical manufacturers. And in the briefing notes, there's also a toolkit here where you can make a call, send an email to members of the Senate urging them to move this bill. And the lightning plan, I kept this in here just as a placeholder because I thought there might be some questions about this. Unfortunately, there is nothing new to report here. This is the governor's comprehensive energy plan. When he pulled us out of Reggie, he said he would make this a priority. We have not seen that yet. Unfortunately, optimism is starting to wane here. Again, there's still a chance where something can be made a trade for in the budget, but we have not seen anything come from the governor's office in moving the lightning plan forward over the past few months. Unfortunately, again, here are the components of the plan. Again, just put this in here as a placeholder for folks in case there were questions, but we don't have anything good to say about lightning at this point. And then some upcoming committee meetings tomorrow. The House Environmental and Natural Resources Protection Committee will be holding a hearing on methane emissions from the oil and gas industry. You can stream it live at the link here in the slide. And then the Senate Environmental Resources and Energy Committee next Tuesday is having a public hearing on resource adequacy and the PJM market. That will be off campus in Pittsburgh, so I don't know if that will be streamed live. If I do find a link, I will update this slide or the notes, or if there's a recording afterwards, I will share that also. But you never know when they're off campus if it's something that will be streamed or not. But if you're in Pittsburgh, feel free to join. It should be really interesting. And then legislative session, again, as you can see, not a whole lot of days where both the House and Senate are in session. The House was in session last week. The Senate is in session this week, and then the House will be back next week for 3 days, and then both chambers will be in the first week of May, and then they won't be back until June when budget negotiations really heat up. So not a whole lot of time to get things done, not a whole lot of time where they're both in the building together to get things done and to work on the budget or any sort of trades that they want. So I'm hoping June and the budget is not a disaster, but it's sort of shaping up that it will be very similar to how June always plays out. But again, just a few session days before budget really heats up. And that is my last slide. Over to Melissa.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Thanks for all of the great updates. Folks, if you have questions, you can start putting them in the chat or queuing up to raise your hands. I just have two quick slides here, which many of you have seen before. On May 28th is the annual virtual lobby day. This is always led by Penn Environment, but multiple organizations participate and do their own recruitment. So in the link to the briefing digest is also a link to sign up through Sierra Club for the virtual lobby day for a clean energy future. If you have not done lobbying before, this is a really easy way to get started because you're going to be scheduled into these meetings. They're all virtual. You're going to be giving the talking points and the prep work that you need. You're not going in without support, and you're not, the only person speaking in these meetings. There are going to be experts there, experts like Jen, to do the bulk of the heavy lifting. So we need you as constituents, though, to be there to raise your voices because you're the ones in your communities being impacted by the decisions made in Harrisburg. Next slide. And then finally, our chapter advocacy team is also a great place to get started if you want to engage a little bit more on all of these pieces of legislation, as well as on our federal policy and legislative work. And so our chapter advocacy team meets once a month, but most of our work is actually done asynchronously through email. So do feel free to check us out. Our next meeting is May 7th at 6, or you can visit that website to just get on our email list. And I think that probably concludes our slides. And so I do see some questions have popped into the chat. Feel free to use the raised hand function. I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth between those two. So it looks like the first. Okay, so Bill is asking about Penn Futures Action Alert about HB 1260 warehouse solar, and he has a link to that alert there. Thoughts on that, Jen?
Yes, we definitely support HB 1260. So feel free to take all the action you want there. We appreciate it.
Great. Elaine asks, how do you see the possibility for legislation on net metering this year?
Well, so related to what Bill just asked, I've had a lot of conversations with folks. There's a net metering bill in the Senate from Senator Boscola and one in the House now from Rep. Fiedler. They're both really similar. I've talked to a lot of labor folks, and a lot of folks believe if we want to get House Bill 1260 across the line, or maybe even community solar, there needs to be reform to net metering, most likely closing the merchant generator loophole or the HOMRIC loophole. Um, I think if that's going to happen, there should be a trade for it. A lot of folks just want to get the net metering bills done. They want to slip it into a code bill or some sort of energy bill. But my hope would be that there's a trade there. And again, these bills do not affect or should not affect rooftop solar. Existing projects are currently grandfathered in, so they would not be impacted. But moving forward, systems over a certain size that would qualify for that sort of merchant generator loophole, they would be impacted and the rate they receive would be different. So, I mean, I think it's possible. I doubt it would be a standalone bill. And so we have to wonder and ask ourselves, is the trade worth it, right? If we were to close that loophole, is HB 1260 and House Bill 504, the community energy bill, worth that trade?
Okay, and Peter asks, HB 2151, the draft model ordinance, can you explain further? What is a model ordinance and what does it cover?
Yeah, so we don't know the exact specifics. It would be similar to what a typical ordinance covers. So municipalities can um, cover things like height restrictions, lighting restrictions, screening, setbacks, noise. So again, we don't know the specifics. It would be again a model ordinance that municipalities could adopt or not. I'm hoping that the local governments commission would make this some sort of a public process with input. I'm not familiar with that commission or how it works, but again, it's meant to assist the municipalities that don't have the staff, the capacity, or the expertise to do this on their own, but it's completely optional. But I can do a little more digging if we find, if this bill passes the Senate and we find that this is a public process, we will definitely share that information so folks can engage and they can get stakeholder feedback. I'm just not familiar enough with how they develop it, but those things that I mentioned, like setbacks and screening, are what are typically in model ordinances or ordinances from local governments.
Right, Howard's hand was next.
Yeah, do you have any updates on House Bill 1971, balcony solar bill?
Stuck. Um, there is some concerns, safety concerns coming from IBEW. I don't know their exact concerns, but I have a feeling it has to do with the anti-islanding provisions. So when there's a power outage, your solar, whether it's on your roof or your balcony, it can feed back into the grid and cause an electrocution risk for linemen. And so there are certain um, inverter standards and certain electrical engineering standards that should be implemented. I don't know if that would fix it, but I do know that there are safety concerns from IBEW, and I'm guessing that that's the problem, but I haven't spoken to anyone specifically. But it's proving problematic, so it's stuck due to those concerns.
Thank you.
And excuse me, and from Phyllis, any chance community solar or increased AEPS will pass? Are they in the trade war too?
Yeah, I think I sort of alluded to those. I mean, community solar possible if we get that net metering loophole closed, but I think it's an uphill battle. And then as far as press goes, I mean, it's just been so disappointing, the lack of effort, really, from the governor's office. And we don't know what an AEPS improvement from the Senate would look like. So right now, we're not feeling very optimistic about any improvements to the AEPS right now, unfortunately.
Hey, I don't see any more hands or questions. Do we have any more? Because there is um 9 minutes. So, oh, Christine has her actual literal hand up. Go ahead, Christine.
Um, I think I had mentioned in the past that it would be really great, and I don't know if, it's probably just a bandwidth problem, but if there's a way to create a glossary to all these acronyms, that would just be really helpful.
If you go to the briefing digest at the top, there is one.
Oh, okay. I haven't looked at it on the web yet. Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep. Howard,
You're muted, Howard.
you're muted, Howard.
Okay, yeah, the Energy Bill Relief Act, the EBRA legislation, is there an actual bill number?
Yeah, that is federal. Let me
Yeah,
grab that bill number. I'm terrible at holding numbers in my head, so they quickly slip away. Let me grab that.
okay.
And then I think Bill has something in the chat. What is your estimate for future briefing meetings? I'm not sure I understand that. Like what's upcoming?
Yeah, I just thought since the budget stuff is going to be and bills are they're in session, I guess they're in the next couple months, whether there's any you feel there's going to be much communication that you're going to want to do with us. I'm just trying to guesstimate what you're thinking.
Sure. Well, I mean, I hope so. We want to be mindful of people's time, so we don't want to just have the briefing and not have anything to say. But as long as we have something that's, interesting or useful, we're going to hold them. We used to hold them a lot more often because we were always playing defense. There was always an action to take to stop something bad. Now that we don't have to do that, it's just a little less frequent. So hopefully there will be things for us to work on and move forward in May and June. I really hope.
And if you don't mind, while I'm on the mic, what have you heard about the Penn Future effort to bring a bunch of I don't know how they're getting the legislature to join them, but experts and for that June meeting to try to get their policy ideas across. Have you heard much about that effort?
I have not. No, I'm not. I'm not familiar with that. Have you heard of that, Nate? I mean, I know they're having their like the Penn Future CVPA lobby day on May 4th. I'll be attending that, but I don't know what's happening in June.
Yeah, if I find it, I'll send it to you.
Sure.
All right, any other questions? Um, we can certainly close out a little bit early. Everyone loves that. Okay. These resources will be sent via email within the next couple of days once I get the recording together. If you think of any questions, feel free to email us. And stay tuned for announcements about when the next briefing will be held. Date to be determined. So thank you all for coming tonight. It was a great crowd.
Thanks,
Take,
everyone.
take care.